Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. When I asked Rob Brownstein, the noted actor, teacher, director, where he was born and raised, I got this list that sounded like a travel guide. Born in Saigon, raised in Washington, D.C., the Ivory Coast, Italy, New York City, Ethiopia, and that was all before he was in high school and college in Queens. You've seen him on lots of TV shows and film, and what he loves, the stage. Rob, do you remember any of those childhood travels?
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
You
or
do?
Almost all of them, yeah.
You were so young, and what were you doing? With your parents, I hope.
My parents were in development of foreign countries. I mean, it was a time, God, it seems so weird given where we are today, but it was a time where we were sending people out to develop other countries in the world and to help. And
from the State Department? Or?
No. My dad was working with the State Department, but my mother was a teacher. She was teaching English as a second language, and my dad did agricultural programs and things like that, training programs.
Yeah, which was perfect at that time.
Yeah.
Now they just do the internet and they know how to do everything. Were you acting when you got to college?
Yes. Well, sort of, actually. I became an actor in an odd way. I was taking acting classes. And
why?
Because I liked it, and I had years before done poetry readings. And, live with, sort of big deal poetry readings. And I was a musician. And I played alto sax and guitar. And I was a music major at Queens College, and I came back. There was no jazz department. That's how they'd handled the bankruptcy, because Queens College was a city university, and there was not much not much room for an alto sax player in classical music. So I was literally walking back through the drama building on my way to the bus to go home, and they were auditioning for Time of Your Life.
You're kidding.
So that was it. I sort of...
You didn't take your sax in there and say, can I play on stage?
No, I just sort of moved over to being an actor and, changed my major, and that was it. I never really looked back.
Yeah, so it was all on your own, really, because there was no show business in your family, we see.
No,
was there any musical talent in your family?
My dad could play. He was sort of one of those guys who could play anything. He played the clarinet, he played the piano, he could pick up anything. So there was that, but pretty much it. I am the only artist in the family.
But in any of the plays that you've been in, or any of the movies, have you ever been played a musician and been able to use your skills?
Never.
Well, somebody has to write something for you. You have to write something for yourself.
Well, I guess I haven't really thought about it. I just play these roles. But, it's like you have skills that you never use in the business. Like I speak a ton of languages. I speak 5 different languages,
Really?
And I've only, I think, done 2 parts where I've used my French.
You mean from times when you were traveling, or just because you picked them up so well? You auditioned. Did you get the role?
Of what?
When you were in Queens College.
Oh, you mean Time of Your Life?
Yes.
No, I didn't actually. But it was enough,
So it
enough.
fit you. And so when would you say that your big break came? Did it come in acting or did it come in directing? Because you direct too.
Well, I did both. And for sort of the first 10 years of my life in New York, I was doing both. I was directing and I was acting and directing and acting. And then I came out here. I was brought out here by Disney to write and direct some shows.
Oh, right. You were working for Disney, and you also were in more of a entrepreneurial role too in your career, like development in
You mean of projects and things like that? Well,
Yeah.
Kind of. I think that's what directors do. You're constantly coming up with projects and trying to figure stuff out. And I started, working for Disney. Brought me out here, and they were great. And then it was sort of like I was here, and I would bump into casting directors and people who'd known me in New York, and they started bringing me in. and I continue to do both. But then when I, started to have a family, that was when, I was doing well enough as an actor, and I wanted to be home with my kids. That was one of the, because my dad was an executive. He was never around, and I wanted to be home with them. So, I don't know.
So you left Disney?
I did. I worked for them for about 3 years, and again, they were wonderful.
And then you started acting a lot.
I was already acting by the time I was there,
you were,
back to acting again,
Right.
and then and then I was acting, and I went back east, did some regional theater, both as an actor and as a director, and then came back here in '97, and it's pretty much been a straight shot because you start to raise kids and everything.
Do you think directing, being an actor, helps you in directing?
Absolutely.
Or the other way around?
Well, I don't know that being a director helps you as an actor.
I wonder because when you're acting, are you always thinking the director should be doing it this way or that? No.
No, I think anybody who acts and directs, and I don't know how many other people you've interviewed and you asked this from, when you're acting, you got to put your director's hat aside. And when you're directing, you got to put your actor's hat aside.
You have to have confidence in what they're telling you to do.
Well, they're two different points of view. They're two different ways of looking at the
Right.
story. And, when you're acting, you can't look at the whole story. You have to look at your piece of it,
Do you have a certain style of directing? Do directors have I know they have certain styles, but do you have a certain style? Is there something you look for when you approach a piece?
I'm a funny guy because I come out of a school of directing where you're not supposed to notice the director in the theater.
Oh, that's interesting because now you do notice the director.
Well, now, and again, it's part of what you need to have a career and do all that is people have to notice you. But I come out of a sort of school of directing, at the time that I was coming up where, the point was to watch the story and get the story, not sort of notice the directing that much. And so I think even, as I'm starting in the last year or so to get back into directing for the camera, I still sort of work with that point of view,
You also teach. Do you teach directing? You teach at Quetzales? Did you teach with Milton?
I taught for Milton for about 8 years.
Milton was fantastic.
Loved him. He was terrific.
So did you pick up things from him? Did you learn things? Oh, yeah. And then do you teach kind of his style?
Absolutely.
Or whatever his style was?
Yeah. Well, his style was pretty straightforward, and I still teach his approach. And because I think it's a wonderful approach. It's an approach that's it's based on each individual actor and what they need, not a particular method or this or that. You just use whatever works for each actor.
And that's at the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
No,
right?
I don't teach at the Beverly Hills
Oh,
Playhouse.
you don't?
I have my own. I teach for myself now.
Oh, you do?
I left.
But you were teaching there.
I was there for 8 years,
I
and
see.
now I teach on my own. And and I've got a couple of workshops that I also teach, a commercial workshop, an audition workshop, and I have my acting class, yeah.
But Milton was a painter, too.
He was.
I had him on the show.
Amazing.
Do you paint?
I don't paint.
The artistic side of you is the musical side. The artistic
Yes.
side of Milton was the painting, because he
Yes.
loved that so much.
But he and my son always got along because my son loves to draw. I mean, he plays
that
music.
was perfect, yeah.
And the two of them, and I remember once Milton was having a gallery show, and he was just starting to get into some Oriental works, and my son went down into this little back room with some stuff, and he was down there for about 20 minutes, and he came up, and he'd done his own drawings, which he wanted to show Milton, inspired by what Milton was doing.
Oh, that's fabulous. He
funny.
probably loved it, because I went to those shows. He had a lovely little gallery in front, and he was great. We've interviewed him.
What a
We've known him for years.
fabulous teacher in person.
So when you're teaching, do you teach your people to put on wigs like your show? I'm getting into beautified now.
Well,
let's get into beautified.
yeah, let's get into beautified. No, beautified's just it's just a fabulous project. I mean, it's about a friendship between a hairdresser and his client over the course of 30 years, starting in 1969 all the way going through. And those relationships, they're the kind of relationships we have in life that are so meaningful to us, but on some level they don't get into our deepest part of our lives because, there are hairdressers and we don't necessarily hang out or do things with them, but they know our whole lives for
do.
so many years.
And the writing is so great.
Yeah.
Tony?
Well, Tony Abetamarco wrote this piece as an homage, sort of, to his brother, who was a hairdresser, and it, you know, the inspiration for this guy.
Did you have to audition for the role?
I did.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
And was he part of the casting?
Absolutely.
And who was directing it?
Jenny Sullivan, a wonderful, wonderful director. She's done a ton of theater. I mean, you might know her from doing Baby Dance. She works at the Rubicon all the time. She's worked all over.
I asked her, how was this? And she said, it was tough. You know,
tough.
It's tough. This is a new play. I had to use my vision. I thought that was great. And then you sit down and you see the years pass and you see your character go from very, respectable?
Straight, I think is what you want to say, right?
Maybe. So tell us a little bit about that.
He's a young man who is married, has kids, and opened his own business, and is having issues on who he is, I think, when we find him at the beginning. And as play progresses, he comes out and begins to accept that until, finally, as we get towards the end of the play, he's finally accepting of who he is and has a partner. But
look how he changes.
Yeah, that's the wonderful part.
You change your wigs, your clothes, the scenery.
Well, it happened in my life, too. There was a time when I had long hair.
You had hair? Is that what you're trying to say? But it just shows. And then the person, the other character, Karen Austin's character, is your person who's been with you for 30 years.
Yeah.
And you know everything about her.
Well, you know a lot of things, but again, these are those relationships, and Karen's just amazing. I mean, besides being an amazing actress with so many things she's done, she's just a joy to work with, and creating these parts and these moments in these people's lives together was tremendous fun.
It's at the Skylight Theater.
Yes, in Los Feliz, on Vermont.
On Vermont. Does it seem different with different audiences?
Yeah.
Do you play differently? How does it happen?
Well, we talk to the audience.
I know you do.
In this play, and no matter what play you're doing, it's different from audience to audience. But when you're talking to them and you're looking them right in the eye.
Do you see them when you're looking at them right in the eye?
Actually, this is a funny thing, but I see them a little less well than Karen because, as you can see, I wear glasses and I take them off in the play.
Oh.
So, I only see them really well for the first couple of rows. Karen sees them perfectly through the entire play.
Well, she walks up and down. Yeah. You just come right to the edge and talk to us.
Well, I am the memory.
Oh, you are the memory. Do people talk back to you?
Sometimes.
And does that throw you, or
no,
how about
it's
the
fun.
rhythm? Is it?
Oh yeah, because we talk about things all through history. I mean, not just our lives, but we talk about the Reagan era. Talk about different hairstyles through the years, and there's one part where I talk about sort of the Norma Kamali look, and it's funny because you get people who remember that look or who wore that look, and they want to talk. So, yes, I remember.
Yeah,
I remember. I wore that. Yeah.
Because I sat there and I was going like, and you have the news on, and you work a lot with the audio guy.
What do you mean, the sound?
The sound. Do you look up at him, or does Karen look?
I don't. Karen does.
Karen looks up at him.
Yeah, and talks to him. But it's fun because, people can relive their own lives through this panoply of history. And
well, I think Beautified has to go. It was like one step further than Shampoo with Warren Beatty, and that was a great movie. This can be another great movie.
That would be great. I think Tony would be thrilled.
I think so, too, and we'd be thrilled. Thanks for coming over today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with Lauren Buckley. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with Lauren. Musical career began in New Orleans, where she was born and raised, sang in the chorus, played the piano, and she earned a BA in music from Princeton University, so she left New Orleans to go there, and continued her studies at the Royal Academy of Music in London. Lauren was named Artistic Director of the Jefferson Performing Arts Society, working with children from the ages of 3 to 8. With all of that creative life in New Orleans, why did you move to Los Angeles?
Well, that is sort of the biggest question. Hurricane Katrina came through.
Yes.
And devastated most of the population in terms of, you know, who was available to sing. And priorities sort of got rearranged. Of course, yes, music was one of the important healing components for the city. And I was involved with a lot of sort of memorial concerts and musicals that people would put together just to break the monotony of throwing out your old belongings and tearing down your walls. But for me, it was an opportunity to say, well, what do I want to accomplish in my life with my musical career? I'd always envisioned continuing my musical studies. And
was it depressing at that time?
It was, but it was the kind of event that you know that with distance and with time, if you can look back at it as an opportunity to improve your life or someone else's life.
We think about all the devastation, and as you said, people were moving out. I don't think people thought about like the arts, because they were healing, and if there was a chorus to sing or a museum to go into, you always do that. But the idea that some of the singers were gone, that was pretty interesting.
That was the hardest thing too. A lot of, and because I was working primarily with children, there were no schools open. So the parents couldn't bring the kids back. It was all connected and made it very difficult. It was possible, but I chose it to be an opportunity to take a new path.
And you came to the Thornton School,
I did.
Which is so great, isn't it? Flora Thornton
Fabulous.
was one of our greatest philanthropists in the city. I adored her so much. And how was that school once you got here?
It was amazing. I came in at the end of William Denning's tenure as the chair of the choral conducting department, so I got a year to study with him.
So you knew you were coming right to the choral conducting.
I did, yes.
You did. Have you ever conducted orchestra?
I have some experience with orchestra as well, yes.
But you didn't come to do any of that.
Well, I have, my minor is in orchestral
Oh,
conducting.
it is. Oh, it is. So they give that all at the Thornton School?
They do. You can choose different specialties.
I see. And when you went to Princeton and when you went to the Royal Academy, was it primarily for choral conducting?
Primarily, yes.
But not for training your soprano voice?
That always sort of came on the side. It was, I had a funny complex about it all, because as a child, I had a good musical ear, and so the teachers would always put me on the alto part. And
Oh, you're kidding!
I grew up thinking, I'm an alto. I can't sing high. I'm an alto. I can hold a tune. I can carry the harmony, but you know, not the greatest voice. And then when I got to college and I auditioned for some a cappella groups, everyone was like, what are you doing singing alto? You should be a soprano.
Oh, you're kidding!
So then I started singing soprano, but still had a complex about it. And it wasn't until recently that I started to think, I really am a soprano. But a lot of it was self-taught, sort of self-realized.
Maybe with the soprano voice that you'd go on stage, or the opera, or something else other than choral directing?
At times, but I enjoy the environment of choral singing. Even with solo works, I like the solos that are part of the larger choral works.
But you don't sing them, do you?
Sometimes I do.
Oh, you can as a conductor?
Oh, not while I'm conducting.
I wondered.
I have to take that hat off and put on another one.
I see. So if you're in a chorus with someone conducting you,
then
can sing.
I'll sing the solos. Yes.
You'll do the solos. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it's a nice counterbalance. Being a conductor is incredibly rewarding, the gift of helping people create music together.
Well,
but it's nice to have the singing too.
We took your soprano role away from you. Let's go back to the Thornton School.
Sure.
Why is it so great?
One of my major criteria for choosing Thornton was that I wanted to be in a city that had a vibrant community that supported music. And Los Angeles is just phenomenal for
We
that.
have a lot of choral groups, don't we?
An amazing amount.
Do you work together?
Yes.
Oh, actually, when Dudamel did that thing, he brought,
Yes,
like, what, 800 voices? Was it the Mahler? And it was the Venezuela, when he brought the children from there. But he brought 800 voices to the Shrine Auditorium. Were you part of it?
I was part of it with another group.
With
I have
another
my
group?
fingers dipped in a lot of different pots.
Because you would have to go out and find
Right.
all those singers.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it is a vibrant community.
It is.
You spent some time in Portland, though, with
did.
the orchestra, conducting that Baroque orchestra.
The Baroque Orchestra was a visiting ensemble at the Oregon Bach Festival. They really tried to make an effort for the students, the fellows who were selected for the Bach Festival, to have an opportunity to conduct both the chorus and an orchestra.
Oh, that's when you did that?
Because they like to attract people from all different musical backgrounds. So the Portland Baroque Orchestra came in. We talked about Baroque bowing techniques and articulation, and it's stuff that it's the nitty-gritty of putting together a musical song.
What is that? The difference between a Baroque orchestra and a regular orchestra? Size, for one, probably.
Size is one. The construction of the instrument is different.
The way they're set up?
The way
Or
the actual instrument is made.
Is it?
Is different.
Oh, it is a different.
The bow that they use is different. The way that they hold the bow is different.
Really?
There's a curve in it, in a Baroque bow. Now, I'm not a string player, so this is all stuff I've absorbed
you've
over the
learned.
years. Yeah. So I hope, this is all, I don't offend any string players, but the curve of the bow is such that when you
Strike
or make a bow stroke across the strings, there's a natural decay in the sound.
Oh,
as
so
opposed
that
to a
adds,
modern instrument.
oh.
It changes the way that the note sounds.
The voices change to go with it?
The voices change in terms of the way you shape a phrase and how you use articulation, yes. And one of my other specialties at USC was early music, because my voice is better suited to that type of singing as well. So
And what does that encounter?
Early music just has to do with a vocal music that's, pre-1750 or so. So this is before big opera.
How do people know what those voices sounded like? There weren't recordings, were there?
That is the big question.
There weren't recordings.
There were a lot of treaties that were written.
But there were instruments.
There were instruments.
So that could help a little bit, right?
Yes, the instruments help. The writings that different music theorists put together, people read a lot about that. But it is an ongoing issue, not just for solo work, but for choral work. What is the performance practice of performing Bach? And there's a raging argument about whether you should have a massive choir, one person per part.
And who, in the long run, decides? The artistic director?
The artistic director decides, and you kind of decide it from a practical standpoint. Well, what performing forces do I have? What can I accomplish? And for me personally, although I think performance practice is important and interesting, I want to put out a good musical product. And if it's not going to be the best product by
with one
trying
person
to
or a whole
implement
group?
These performance practice issues, then I might do a more modern performance of it.
Oh, I see.
Because the final goal is still putting on a good show.
And talking about artistic directors, you were the artistic director of the Hollywood Master Chorale.
Yes.
Or you are.
I am.
You are. What are those duties?
Well, it involves planning the season. We have between 3 and 4 concerts a season.
And where are they?
The concerts vary. We had our Christmas concert at Beverly Hills Presbyterian.
Oh, how nice.
The Hollywood Master Chorale has also recently performed at Emmanuel Presbyterian. And we just had a spring concert in March at Hollywood Lutheran Church. And so we're enjoying a residency there.
So as artistic director, do you audition members of your choral group?
I do.
And is it a group of you who audition, or do you do it alone?
It's mostly just me at this point. And, we're looking for certain types of voices, but we're looking for attitudes also, because putting together a choir is about having people come together in a happy, healthy, safe environment to make music. And personality plays a big role in that.
I bet it does. That must be very difficult to balance that.
It can be, but it can also be
fantastic.
Really magical.
When it's great, yeah. How many are in your chorus?
Right now we're working with a small chamber size, about 25 singers.
Oh, is that right? Is that what it was at Beverly Hills Presbyterian?
It was about the same size, at that concert.
Because our little Paloma goes to nursery school there.
Oh, really?
And she does, in the morning, they have their little prayer time and their little get-together in the main
sanctuary.
Yes.
Well, I sing there regularly. I'm one of the soprano soloists there.
Oh, fantastic. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the acoustics?
Fabulous acoustics. We had a big brass ensemble come in and accompany us for some sing-along carols, and it was just fantastic. Very Christmassy.
Very good. So you're in charge of then changing the repertoire, I would think.
Yes.
And since it's a new thing for you, how do you feel about changing that?
Well, the group has been really flexible in terms of the type of music they want to sing. We sang Brahms's Liebeslieder Walzer, which is one of the staples of choral music.
Does the group help you?
Pick the repertoire?
Yes.
No?
You do it all, and then they have to sing up to what you've chosen.
Yes. And you know, the great thing is that most people rise to the challenge.
Is there a style that you look for?
Well, yes, we have one concert coming up, the final concert of the season, on June 17th, and it's the first of a new project, educational project that we're implementing called Voices of LA, and we've selected 4 student composers to write new music for us.
Really? Students from where? High school, college?
College. We have 3 graduate students, 1 undergraduate student, and we've asked them to use the text from William Blake's Songs of Innocence.
Oh, so they have something
to go by. So there's a theme connecting, yes, and we've been in cahoots about that. And then next year they'll be partnered with Mentor, established composers, and they will all write pieces using Songs of Experience.
Fantastic.
So it's this 2-year project that really tracks the progress, the compositional progress.
And if we start attending those performances now, we'll see that thread go all the way through for the next 2 years.
Right, and in the concert, the composers will each speak about their piece.
Yeah,
so it's not just a one-time hearing, because sometimes it can be difficult to get what they're trying to say with their music, but they will actually read the text and speak about their inspiration so that people can feel involved in the process and not just receiving the final product.
That's fantastic, Lauren. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lauren Buckley. And thank you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. And don't forget your emails. I love them. JAQUINN1 @AOL.com. Bye.